This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace. Chris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Chris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer, and welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with my friend, certified financial planner and financial advisor, Chris Wallace at WG Financial Group. As we go through our show today, you'll probably have questions, okay? I mean, I have questions. I'm the one that asks the questions, but if you have your own, you can certainly call and get in their office and go in for a visit. It's complimentary. It's called a discovery session. 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach out for a complimentary appointment. Call or text the word visit 256-937-2010. Remember, you can check us out on Facebook as well. Just search for the name of the company, WG Financial Group, in 256, the prefix of our phone number, and lots of things there for you to get and understand. Chris will update any headlines throughout the week there. Plan, retire, play. That's our motto. WGFinancialGroup.com. And remember, our show is available also on Spotify and Apple. Just search for Rocket City Retirement Show. Chris, so excited to be here with you.
It's like the old days, Lou Ann.
I know. Here we are. You and me again. Where is everybody?
I kicked the boys out this week.
Where'd they go?
So Richard is he's away. He's out of town with his fiance and some family. And I believe they went up to Toronto. So they're just kind of chilling out up there, and he's having fun. I've, talked to him a couple times. And Graham is actually working. So Graham and I spoke. Yep. He has appointments today, and he said, hey, I've got a lot of appointments. I don't know if I can make radio. I was like, hey, you can have the week off, no problem, and it'll just be you and I, Lou Ann. So this is fun. It's like the old days.
Yes, exactly. So exciting. Now, we're going to talk about the markets right now because people, man, they are up in arms about it, but yet at the same time, it's kind of what it's always been. So what do we do? How do we look at that?
Well, first thing I'd like to do is I would like to talk about a little positivity.
Oh, you want to go there first?
I do. And I
jump right to the bad stuff. No.
I know. It's like, come on, Lou Ann. Let's go positivity first.
Okay, we're going to do positivity first. Gotcha.
So I didn't find an article. This is, kind of positivity within Chris's world, but I'm hoping that it'll relate to some of the listeners out there. So Jennifer and I have been married for quite a while now, more than 20 years. And, it's important that when you're married that you do not forget to do date nights and go out and do things together.
Right.
Now, this is especially difficult for younger married couples because money is a little bit tighter. But as you age, you can't let that go by the wayside. You have to continue doing those things. And frankly, if I'm being fully honest and, full transparency right here, sometimes it's even hard for me. It's like, okay, well, we'll just stay here, order pizza, watch TV or something like that. You really need to get out and kind of do some things. So we had the opportunity to go see Kenny Chesney in Nashville.
One of my faves.
Yeah, Kenny's awesome.
Yeah.
So Kenny's awesome. So here's the thing about Kenny Chesney that I learned, and I posted this on my personal Facebook page, but Kenny Chesney is an amazing performer.
Yes.
I mean, the guy's high energy.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had just maybe 1/4 the amount of energy that he has running around on stage.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing that I learned about Kenny Chesney. Kenny Chesney sweats more than the average human being.
Seriously?
I am not kidding. I know that sounds really gross.
That does.
And people are like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Go to one of his concerts. And, within a few minutes, so he came out in a tank top.
Right.
And within like 2 songs, he was drenched like he'd run a marathon.
Oh, my.
Yes, and I was telling Jen, I said, man, that dude is sweating like unbelievable. Like I would play a full basketball game
and not
sweat nearly as bad.
Did he change shirts?
No.
Okay.
He was, it was, anyway.
So that would have been a great opportunity for him and the ladies. Got to take off this tank top and put on a new one.
Yeah, that would have been all right for the ladies, not for me. So I'm good. He just leave his shirt on. So anyway, all right. So they also had the Zac Brown band there. So Zac Brown band opened up, and I really, really, really like Zac Brown band.
Yeah, me too.
I think they make incredible music. And to me, they're kind of like the country Dave Matthews because they have they have a horn section and stuff like that. But they were amazing. But what was really cool, and this is kind of leading to my positivity. So positivity is get out and do your date nights. And then what I really like about Zac Brown Band is they're very, very patriotic. And during one of the songs, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the song, but it references those who, basically have died for the country, and the USA chant broke out.
Oh my gosh.
And it was loud. And I got chills talking about it right now. And for me, I am a proud American. Like, I love this country. I love our flag. I love our military. And also our local police and firefighters and first responders and whatnot. But when stuff like that happens and I'm like in the middle of that, it is like the coolest thing in the world. That for me was probably the most, awesome moment of the night to hear. I don't know how many people were there. I would say probably 40,000 maybe or something like that, just chanting USA, USA. I thought it was amazing.
So, what was the venue there in Nashville?
Nissan Stadium. Yeah, so where the Titans play up in Nissan. So it was a lot of fun.
That's so cool. Love it. Yeah.
All right, so now we're on a positive note.
Okay.
Now we got to go back for a minute.
Now we're going to do the current market conditions. It's been kind of crazy here last couple days, right?
Right. Richard leaves and everything breaks loose.
Yeah, we got to tease him about that when he comes back. It's all your fault. Yeah,
he leaves and just the market just goes crazy. Anyway, it was really, really bad. So here's kind of the deal. Like, the media just seizes these moments.
I know it. They do.
And seizes these moments, and they just take it, and they, I was looking at a headline, flipping through headlines and stuff the other day, and one of the things that I wrote. So the first thing we did, like on Monday, what I did personally was I woke up, took a look at the futures. I was like, oh boy, this ain't gonna be good. I actually saw it happening on Sunday because you're watching, what's going on in Japan, and I was like, oh man, Monday's gonna be ugly. So I already started thinking about work on Monday. So I get up Monday, and as I'm going into the office, I'm literally dictating notes, via my phone verbally while I'm driving through Bluetooth or whatever. And, basically I get in the office and, compose an email to send to all of our clients to let them know, hey, listen, we're not, out on a Caribbean island. We are watching what's going on, and, here's kind of what I see happening. And we'll talk about some of that today. But what I'm referencing is the headline that I saw was Dow, drops 1,000 points in market rout or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I probably have the email pulled up. I do. It says Dow drops 1,000 points, NASDAQ craters 4% in global market rout. So the first thing that I told my clients in my email to them was, this is really a great fear article where they write the Dow's dropping 1,000 points.
Yeah.
Which is basically 2.5%. But if you say 1,000 points,
the way they say it, yeah,
it makes it sound a lot worse. And so you could clearly see how those articles, the way that they're titled that way to garner clicks, and you'll click on it. And at the end of the day, if I just said, hey, the market's off 2.5% today, everybody's like going on about their business, not worried. But the Dow is down 1,000 points, and it's all like crazy. So just understand that the market, the media just seizes moments like this. And, so I do have to, I want to talk about, like, what is the market maybe trying to tell us?
Okay.
So it has been a little crazy here, and there is a lot going on. There's the anticipation of Fed rate cuts that may happen in September.
Exactly.
But then also there's probably an element of the presidential race kind of being priced in as well. Mm-hmm. So I think when we saw the markets, go up a few weeks ago, that was probably pricing in Trump getting elected. And then now I have to wonder, is the market trying to figure out if Kamala is going to get elected? And when you look at that, they have two different agendas. Mm-hmm. One, Trump is more loose on loose regulations, and I think the market may be trying to price some of that in as well.
Crazy.
And it's going to be interesting because if you look at the polling, and I don't really follow a lot of polling because they're all over the place at this point. but I believe there's a gentleman called Nate Silverman, I think is his name, and he's supposed to be kind of like the guru. He actually has Kamala winning the election right now. So
okay.
it's gone from Trump. Yeah, it's gone from Trump leading pretty massively to now she's actually predicted to win by him. Now, there's other polls that have Trump way ahead and all of that. And it's going to come down to the battleground states. And as we, and I don't want to get too political on here because, we try to keep it more financial related. But, if you look at the, who she's just picked as VP, I believe it's the governor out of Minnesota. So that actually came out this morning. So it's going to be interesting to see how the markets react there. But really more importantly, as I was mentioning earlier, I think the market's looking at the potential Fed rate cut. And what we're kind of looking at right now is if you look at the futures today, now this is way different than it was yesterday. So I was looking at the futures yesterday, and as of yesterday, there was like above 80% chance that there was going to be a 50 basis point cut in September. But now if you go there today, which is what I did prior to the show, the futures are actually telling us that there's a 67% chance of a 50 basis point cut and about a 33% chance of a 25 basis point cut. Now, what that does tell us, or at least it tells me, and it should tell you and whoever else is looking at this stuff, there's definitely going to be a cut in September. That's what the market's telling us right now because of what the futures are telling us. We can also see that in the falling 10-year Treasury yield. So last week, I don't know if many people caught this, the Treasury yield fell 60 basis points last week. I mean, just fell off a cliff. And that, if I remember correctly from some of the data that I was reading, it's a 60 basis point fall in the Treasury yield is the worst it's fell in at least a decade from what I can remember. And I think and again, do not quote me on this, but I think it's the quickest fall since like 2008 in the Treasury yield. So a pretty big cut there, when it comes to the Treasury yield. So that is the bond market's probably telling us a couple things. Number one, that there is going to be rate cuts, and the Treasury yield is actually pricing in multiple rate cuts till the end of the year. That's what one of the things that it's telling us. I also believe it's kind of a warning sign that we could also be headed towards a recession. Now, don't let the word recession scare you when I say recession, and don't take it like you're getting out of your car to go to Lowe's and you're like, oh, Chris said we're going into a recession. Oh, we better do all these things right now. I could be wrong, but that's kind of the way things are shaping up at this point. It kind of looks like we may be going into a recession. Now, when I say the word recession, what I do think we have to remember is that we do have the Feds who are often wrong. I think they were late on raising rates. I also think they're going to be late on lowering rates, but they do have tools to kind of help turn a recession around. And I think when we look at recessions nowadays, we kind of go in a recession, but we're back out of them, a little quicker than we were in history, just based on some of the monetary policy tools that they have. So again, the message or the question right now might be, have the Feds waited too long to actually start lowering rates? There's been a lot of people, I think Jeremy Siegel, an economist, is one of them, calling for emergency rate cuts. Like, he would prefer that the Feds come in right now and start lowering rates. So that also is going to be really, really interesting, for us to watch from now until the FOMC meeting, because I'm almost wondering that if the conditions continue to deteriorate a little bit, will the Feds come in and actually make an adjustment prior to the meeting, which they did during the COVID crisis. So it's not out of the question. But then you have to wonder, they just had their meeting a few weeks ago, and there's that whole pride thing, basically we just had the meeting and didn't lower rates, and now a couple of weeks later we got to lower rates. It's almost like admitting that you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there might be some pride there, but at the end of the day, they don't want a recession. The Feds don't. I mean, none of us really want a recession. So I'm starting to wonder now, with this market going a little bit crazy, is the tail wagging the dog at this point? So is the market going to kind of force the Feds into making an adjustment early? But even if they don't, is the market going to kind of force the Feds into making a more aggressive cut in September? So here is what I would tell you with all of this going on, because we have a pretty large client base, And we did not receive one phone call yesterday. I was on the phone with a client this morning and he said, "Hey, Chris, how many phone calls did you get yesterday?" I was like, 0.
Oh, wow.
Because
See?
our clients have a plan.
They have a plan.
And I was out in front early in the morning composing an email to send to everybody. Say, hey, listen, we're watching this. So a lot of my clients have relationship advisors that work directly with them, but it was time to hear from me yesterday because things were kind of ugly and things were all over the media. And at that point, I felt like I needed to put something out there to everyone to say, hey, listen, our team is aware. Don't panic. You have a plan. And there were several things that I put in the email to them to hopefully just kind of calm some nerves and let them know that we're taking a look at it. And one of the things I said was what I said a few minutes ago. The media loves this stuff. They take this stuff and they run with it. And then you're plugged in and you're reading it. And all of a sudden you're thinking, man, the world's about to end.
Oh, yeah. Chris, can I just interject here? My husband,
Absolutely.
We were working out yesterday and he'd been listening to a podcast. And after our workout, he was so fired up and angry. And he tells me about everything that it was all about negativity, about the market and what's going on. And I'm like, oh, wow. I go, that is totally opposite, of what my advisors are saying. And, that again is just that fear mongering that they do. Media frenzy right there. And he was in a bad mood. And I'm like, okay, I'm not listening to that podcast for sure.
Yeah, I've had clients tell me actually the same client that I was on he's an avid listener to my show, by the way. So he's going to hear this. He's going to know I'm talking about him, by the way. So I was on the phone with him this morning. He said, "You at the office?" I was like, "No, it was early." I said, "I'm on the way home from the gym." And so a lot of times I'll just make calls when I'm in the car. But he's told me before, like when I've talked to him, he said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I'm a little snappy this morning. I've been up watching Fox News." I'm like, man, you got to turn that stuff off when you get out of bed. Pick up your Bible or something. Do something else besides watch that news because our eyes and our ears, man, that's the gateway to our soul. And the more we feel that stuff with negativity, it bleeds out of you. Just like when you eat a lot of sugar and things like that, your body's going to react.
Caffeine, right? Yeah.
It's no different with information.
Yeah, he was short-tempered with me. Bobby was at the grocery store. I'm like, okay, you got to pull away for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And that's all. It's because of the information that you're digesting and processing. So here's what I was going to say is, and thank you for saying that because there are listeners out there that behave that way too. Yeah. I behave that way about certain things as well.
Too. I get upset. Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I don't immerse myself into politics. Now, don't get me wrong. Chris stays plugged in. Chris knows what's going on, but I'm not going to digest that stuff every day and have a steady diet of it because it's going to make me angry.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, if you're concerned or this past week or past few days has got you concerned, I would argue that you probably don't have a plan, a financial plan. I would argue that with you, and I would argue all day long with you. Actually, I won't say argue. Argue is kind of a negative word. I would say I would debate that with you.
There you go.
So, and I would say if you're worried about election results, you probably don't have a plan because we know things are going to change. We know laws and regs are going to change. We know that tax laws are going to change. So if you're concerned about the election results, you don't have a plan. And the answer, in my opinion, is not to just sit there and do nothing, because the longer you sit there and do nothing, what if your party that you're pulling for doesn't get in? Then what's your plan? To continue sitting there for 4 more years? No, you need to develop a plan, and you need to develop a plan that has some flexibility. I have people tell me all the time, like, I'm good. I have a plan. I've worked with an advisor, whatever. But they're super concerned right now. And I'm not being ugly. I'm not trying to call anybody out. I would call myself out as I do on the air all the time if this were me. But if you're concerned and you're saying you have a plan, but yet you're still really concerned, you don't really have a plan. You really don't. And in my professional opinion, I believe that a plan should provide some confidence. It should provide some clarity. It should allow you, especially if you're newly retired or maybe you're going into retirement, it should give you that confidence to go into retirement or during the first part of your retirement when you should be going out and doing all of the fun things that you've been waiting to do. it should allow you to do that. And if you're sitting there and you're just steady every day worried about things, then I would argue that you don't really have a plan, or maybe you don't trust in the plan, and maybe it's time to get a second opinion on what's been built for you. It's real funny how we tend to behave, and we're going to talk about some behavioral stuff a little bit later on. I've got some notes here to talk about that. But our behavior, it changes. We're kind of like chameleons when it comes to how we behave. So if you just look back in 22, remember, inflation went crazy, rates went up, bonds went down, stocks went down. It was the perfect storm in a really bad way. And I'll say everybody, a lot of people became very concerned because, Chris, wait a minute, my bonds are going down. Bonds are supposed to be safe. And now they're going down. My stocks are going down. Inflation's going up. A dozen eggs is $10. What are we going to do? Groceries are crazy. And everybody ran and played turtle, kind of drew in the shell
Yep.
and played turtle. Well, in 2023, the market started to come back. And here in 2024, before July, the market's been really, really good. So people are coming out of their shell again and say, hey, I want some of that. That whole FOMO was kicking in. Fear of missing out. We talked about that a lot on the show.
Wow.
And so in 2023, 2024, FOMO started to kick in. But here's the deal. If you have a plan, you don't need to make a lot of adjustments. You just ride through the turbulence, right? I mean, there's no reason to make a lot of radical adjustments if you have a plan. So that plan should provide some confidence in situations like this where the market is going crazy. It should provide clarity to you and give you that confidence and clarity to go out and enjoy retirement. Our motto is plan, retire, and play. And that's purposeful because most people don't spend enough of their money. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree. But what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money. So that plan should allow you to do those things. And here's what I would say about adjustments. Okay, so we know that we're in a pretty crazy time. And it feels crazy. It feels crazy to me. And I'm not trying to pretend that behind the microphone, everything's okay. No, it feels crazy to me too. All right. But if you have a plan, should you make adjustments? Sure. But you should not have to make radical adjustments. If you have a well-built and well-thought-out plan, in my opinion, you do not need to make radical adjustments. But you may need to make some small tweaks or changes in direction based on things that may be happening in the economy. So when I talk about a plan providing confidence and clarity, that plan should also be built with a little bit of flexibility so that if things do change in the economy, then your plan can kind of mold and adjust to that as well. Now, what is a radical change? A radical change is not taking your entire 401k and putting it in cash. Now, some people have enough money where that's okay. Some people can literally put all their money in a 3, 4, 5% interest earning vehicle and be fine for the rest of their retirement. That's not who I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the individual who needs planning, but they always got their hand in that cookie jar. And I think it was maybe Warren Buffett who said this, that investments can be like a bar of soap. The more you handle it, the smaller it gets. And that's truly what happens when you look at the studies that are out there. And I'm not going to cite any specific studies. You can do this Google research on your own. But usually the average self-investor is in and out of that account too much and going to cash and missing bounce backs. And if you miss a few market days a year that are, high market return days, you're going to ruin your returns long term. So the best thing to do is have a plan and just stick to it. And like I said, make some minor modifications along the way if you need to. You should not be making radical changes there, as I've talked about. And then, like I said, I think it should have some flexibility built into your plan so that when things do change in the economy, you can actually make some of those changes. So if you're concerned today and you're really, really worried, then ask yourself the question: Do I really have a plan? Am I working with an advisor who is providing clarity, providing confidence? Lou and I sit down with people all the time. Yesterday, sat down with with a prospect who works with a big firm out of the Atlanta area. And basically, their advisor doesn't provide a lot of clarity. It's just like, you're going to be fine. You have enough money.
Yeah.
Your money's going to last all the way through retirement. But they're not providing, information on, all right, the market is a little squirrely. We may want to go ahead and collect one of your Social Securities a little bit early because that'll take some pressure off the portfolio. They're not providing advice on, okay, this is what happens when you get to 65 and you're getting ready to sign up for Medicare. Here's what we need to do. Here are the things that you should do now. Here are the things you should do later. Basically, here's your steps for Medicare. They're not providing any of that. They're not providing any tax efficient advice. So you have multiple accounts. Let's say you've got an IRA, a brokerage account, you've got a Roth IRA. Where's the best place to pull money from? The default for Google would probably be something like brokerage account first, IRA, and then tap your Roth last. But is that really the best way? And I think that's what the job of an advisor is, basically laying all of that out for a client, saying, okay, I know conventional wisdom says do it this way, but if you look at the numbers, it's actually better to pull it this way. And I think that's the advice this individual was not getting. He wasn't getting that type of advice, and he's not getting that. And I believe that's what an advisor should do. And sure, I'm not a CPA and I can't, quote, legally give tax advice, but through the CFP curriculum, there's a whole book, like it's 2.5, 3 inches thick on taxation. And you have to take a test on that. So as an advisor, when you're dealing with someone's money and you're telling them where they should pull money from or they should roll an account over, you probably ought to have some pretty good tax knowledge of what the impacts are on those accounts, specifically centered around withdrawals, and how does that impact their Social Security? Should we be waiting on collecting Social Security because it's going to make the tax situation a little bit worse? There's a lot of things that I think this gentleman wasn't getting. And when we walked through our meeting and we looked at our process, and I laid out how the meeting's going to go, just like I do with everybody when I sit down with you. I tell you, this is the purpose of this meeting. Here's the time allotment that we're going to have, and here's kind of the outcome of what we want to happen at the end of this meeting. And at the end of the meeting, then we'll take a look at where things kind of go from there. So when someone calls us, that's the process that we're going to walk through. We're going to take a look at their entire situation, and we're not going to fear people into doing anything. It's going to be, let's collect the data, let's analyze the data, let's formulate a plan, let's put something in place, and then let's monitor that plan, and then let's make adjustments along the way. So there, like I said, Luann, there's a lot of stuff. I know everybody's seen it on the media. There's a lot of stuff going on today out in the world. I would say a couple of things as I wrap this up, because this is the first part of the segment. If you're listening, you can hop out to Spotify. If you're catching the 30-minute version, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, search Rocket City Retirement Show, and you can get the entire episode. So a couple of things as I wrap this up through the first half of the show. Number one, I said it last week, are you placing more faith in man and not enough in God? Because really, at the end of the day, when we talk about elections, we should not, as individuals, especially people of faith, should not be putting all of our faith in man. We should be placing our faith in God. I'm a Christian, so I believe in that way. If whatever you worship or whatever, that's fine. But faith in that, not in man. The second thing is, do you have a plan? Do you have a full retirement plan? And I am talking about more than just your 401k or your IRA statement. Do you have an income plan? Do you have a plan for Social Security? Do you have a plan for Medicare? Is your estate okay in the event you were to pass away early? Is your spouse going to be okay? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about their tax bracket? Because it doesn't matter who dies, husband or wife, one of y'all is going in the single filer tax bracket. And depending on your income situation and your pre-tax assets, it can get kind of ugly. And then it can also push you up in the what's called the IRMAA limits. And that's essentially going to reduce your Social Security amounts. So I do believe that you have to think about things outside of just your 401k statement. Retirement planning is a lot deeper. I've often said it's a lot like a Rubik's Cube. You start twisting on that red side to get the red all right. You're going to mess up the green side. You don't even know you're doing it in a lot of cases. So that is the first half of the show. Again, if you'd like to set up a discovery consultation or a discovery session with us, you can give us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, that number is 256-937-2010.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Chris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
We thank you so much for joining us today. You're listening to the Rocket City Retirement Show with certified financial planner and financial advisor Chris Wallace. He's president of the company, and they are an independent firm. Just like he is saying, you know, there's so much they can look at to help you plan out your retirement, and they will look at everything. It's all based on planning. It is not based on anything salesy. It's, you know, you look at your situation, it's going to be based on math and what can we do here, what can we do there. So we thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you're getting some really good information from Chris as we share it with you today. Now we're going to kind of pivot and talk about how the fact that behavior and money are very interesting. And a lot of times we're shaped by our life's experiences. You think about it, I mean, good or bad, you know, how did your parents handle certain situations, or your grandparents? But here's the deal. A lot of emotion when it comes to money in retirement. I know, Chris, you see it all. You know, people are entering retirement and, you know, they were saving for retirement. Now you're in retirement and that income's not coming in anymore. And you're taking money out of your savings. That is scary, isn't it? And that's a major behavioral change that we have to deal with, don't we?
Mm-hmm. We do. And so back to, you said something earlier, something along the lines of we're shaped by kind of our life experiences.
Yeah.
And that is so, so true. So just think, if you're listening to the show right now, just think about how your mom and dad handled money. Think about where they put money in terms of how they saved money. My guess is if it's your mom and dad, or maybe even think about your grandparents, they put money most of the time in a savings account.
Right.
Because that was their security blanket, if you will. That savings account was where they went to put money that they knew was not going to be lost in the stock market. If you think about like your grandparents, they may have had some of that Great Depression, you know, time in their life. And that shaped who they were. That shaped how they saved money moving forward. And then maybe your parents got some of that. And then some of what your parents probably transitioned, you know, over to you and how you save money today. And I see that correlation a lot. A lot of times when I'm in a meeting, one of the things that I'll ask is, you know, who taught you about money? Who, when you were growing up, how was your mom and dad with money? Did they spend a lot? Did they save a lot? How did they save? Who taught you about investing? Who literally taught you about money? And the spectrum is wide on what I get. I mean, the spectrum is wide, the answers that I get. It's crazy. So, Luann, I'll ask you. I mean, this is totally, I mean, I have some notes that I put together for the show, completely unscripted. Who taught you about money?
Well, okay. So it's interesting because my dad, it would be my dad. But mostly I just learned from him that, you know, he was very conservative. He saved a lot. But the things that kind of came out of his actions about money totally turned me off. Here's what I want to say. When I was little, okay, I got my roller skates for my birthday, skating rink, big time. I'm a sixth grader. And I needed a skating case. And I wanted to get, you know, one for skates. No, my dad was like, well, you know, let's make do. That was kind of what always came through on everything. My parents sold Amway. And so they're like, hey, your skates fit in this Amway box, you know? So I had to carry, and you know what? Looking back, so what, right? But at the time, I was so embarrassed. I'm carrying my skates to the skating rink in an Amway box, you know, a little container, and everybody else had their skating box, right? Okay, another situation that just kind of really affected me and the way I became kind of irresponsible with money. I was in track and I was very good in junior high, set a school records, stuff like that. I was a fast, short distance, like a, what do you call that? Like 50-yard, 100-yard.
Like a sprinter.
Sprinter, thank you.
You were a sprinter?
Yeah. I
Really?
was, but no, that's junior high.
We're racing next time I see
No,
you.
that was junior high.
We're gonna race 50-yard dash. Here we go. Just like school, we're gonna have prizes.
Okay. I set the record for 1 year at my school 1 year. But anyway, so I get up to high school. I'm on the track team. Okay. My dad, though, I need track shoes. Okay. He takes me to Kmart and they don't have my size. Okay. They don't have my size. So my dad's like, what we'll do is you'll stuff Kleenex in the toes of your shoes. And those were my track shoes. And I felt like I was a clown running around the track. Okay. And I didn't do very good. And guess what? I dropped out of track after my sophomore year. So in life then, when I wanted things, I got out on my own. By golly, I was going to buy what I wanted. And so it was kind of not good in our marriage because I had a dad that had kind of always made do, and that drove me crazy. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm making money now and I'm going to buy what I want. So that's how it kind of affected me. So not necessarily good. I don't know. But those are my stories on how. And now I am better now. We've been married 40 years. I'm more responsible with money. But I was not good when we first got married, Chris. So there's my story. I don't know.
It's really funny that you mentioned that. So I want to mention this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story.
Okay.
So actually very similar to yours, except I wasn't a speed demon track person. But so now what I've learned on this show in the past few weeks is that Richard is the stolen base champion of 2020.
He is.
And you set a track record in high school back, years ago. Well, you guys are really athletic and you're speed demons. And I'm slow as molasses, as my basketball coach told me.
I don't believe that. Oh, seriously.
So did your grandparents do this? Now, when I bring this up, I was talking about this. We talk about a lot of this stuff at the office. Like when we do meetings with individuals and families, we do little recaps and we talk about experiences and we talk about our own experiences as well, because with us, we feel like there's an experience with working with us, and we really take to heart a lot of the information that we receive from individuals and families. My grandmother, and I distinctly remember this, like it's vivid for me. She saved paper towels. Like she would use paper towels.
Okay.
And then she would rinse them out, and then she would hang them over the sink to dry. Did your grandparents do that?
My mother saved foil. Okay. All the time. Yeah.
My grandma saved foil too.
Yeah. No, she did not do that one. No, she did not rinse out the paper towels, but we saved a lot of stuff. Yeah. Redid foil all the time. Yeah.
I have an advisor at the office, Levi is his name, and his parents, they save paper towels like that.
Really?
Yes. And I was like, wow.
They're paper.
Yeah, you didn't want to throw it away. Me, I'm the world's worst paper towel offender.
Oh,
I
you
would
are?
use a paper towel for everything.
Oh, you will?
Oh, Kleenex, napkins.
But you throw them away, right? You throw them away. So you're going through the rule. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I do not. I would not recycle any of the paper towels I use. They go right in the trash. I'm the world's worst at that. So anyway, back to your story and how I grew up very similar. I grew up very poor. I was in a single parent home. I have a great relationship with mom and dad today. But I can tell you that I was raised by my mom and I didn't have a lot. And I remember wearing specific shoes to school and being made fun of. And then that pushed me to start working at a really young age. I can actually remember this again very vividly. There were days I didn't eat lunch because we didn't have a lot of money. So we were on what was called the reduced lunch program, which is a different lunch ticket.
Right.
And here's the crazy thing. The reduced lunch ticket was a different color. So you whip that thing out of your wallet or your pocket and it's a different color and everybody sees that. And kids are mean. They just are. They're mean today. They were mean back then.
Yeah.
And so there were days I wouldn't eat lunch just because I didn't want to pull the ticket out. So what it drove me to do was as soon as I could start cutting grass and working, and I was actually able to work at 14 through a job program in the school during the summer. But I had to take a class, and then I would go to my job assignment. So I took typing, which is literally the best thing I've ever taken in my life because I use it all the time now on the keyboard, on the computer.
Sure.
But yeah, so what that did was when I started working like you, I went and bought new shoes.
Yep.
And I learned how to spend money really, really well, like too well.
See?
And then,
yes,
I wanted to have this, and because I didn't have this growing up, and Yeah. So, but then later in life, like you, I had to realize like, okay, this is not the, the way to go.
Yeah.
And so I've seen lots of experiences, I guess, in talking with people. And it's kind of cool to have that connection when I'm meeting with people
Yeah.
and trying to, to relate to what's going on in their life and then sharing a little bit of my story. But all of that to say, there's a lot of emotions in retirement. And you touched on it. We've said this a million times,
Right.
With turning off the faucet of income. So right now, most of our listeners who are, say, 50 and older are in what I would call their peak earning years. And sometimes it's really hard to retire and walk away from that income.
I know. Yeah.
I have people tell me all the time, Chris, I don't know if I want to retire. I'm making so much money right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to, at some point, you have to decide, okay, I only have so many years left on earth, statistically. When do I want to stop working so I can spend time with my spouse and enjoy that? But understand when you do that, for a lot of people, I won't say everybody, but for a lot of people, you're going to go through a lot of emotions during that transition. And for some people, to transition that mind into retirement sometimes takes 1 or 2 years to kind of get into, okay, I'm retired, I can relax a little bit, because you don't have that paycheck coming in every single week or every other week or every month. So what I usually encourage people to do, Luann, and again, we've talked about this a number of times on the show, is if you can set your income streams up to kind of simulate what you were receiving in during your working years, it makes it a little bit more tolerable. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say, for example, you were making $2,000 every other week. So biweekly, you're making a net of $2,000. Well, in retirement, let's assume your Social Security is coming in. Let's just say it's $3,000 a month, and you get that the first week of the month. Well, say it's $3,000. Well, 2 weeks later, maybe it's a good idea to set up a secondary deposit of $1,000. So that comes in around the middle of the month, and now you got your $4,000, just like you were netting in your working years. But it feels like a paycheck because you got your Social Security, and then you got your withdrawal out of your other account that comes in a couple weeks later. It kind of feels like a paycheck,
Right.
or a work paycheck. Because what you're going to find is retirement is about money and how much you got and how to make it last and all that. That's a part of it. But a lot of it is how you feel in retirement.
Yeah.
And the more you can do to get control of those emotions, the better you're going to feel, because the way that you view market downturns and volatility, it's going to change. Like, there's people out there today who are 30, 35, 40 listening to the show. They most likely, unless they're entrenched in some news that they don't need to be entrenched in, you don't need to worry about the market. And most aren't at that age. Like I'm not worried. I'm 51. I'm pretty wide open about that. I'm 51 and I'm not anywhere near retirement at this point. I'm not worried about the market. Do I like to look at my account dropping? No, I don't. That's why I don't look at it all the time. What I do is I feed it, and I don't worry about the ups and downs. But all of that said, when you get into retirement, the market downturns and the volatility is going to change the way that you think. You're going to think about it in a much more emotional way, and it's going to impact you differently. And like I said earlier, it's really funny when things are really good, you're going to want to be out playing in the market. You're like, hey, things are good.
Yeah.
So-and-so's in office and market's going up. I'm feeling braver. And the minute, something happens like what happened in the past week, back into hiding you go. And again, that all points back to you really don't have a plan. And I usually tell people like this, when you're retired, the days of chasing returns, they're gone. Just build a plan. Build something that's comfortable that you and your family can go out and enjoy retirement together in the last years of your life. I call it phase 3 that we've talked about on the show quite a bit. So enjoy that last phase of your life without having to worry about the money all the time. You shouldn't be tracking it in your accounts. At least that's not what I want to do. So I would also say this, Luann, I have a lot of people. So in my letter to my clients yesterday during the 1,000-point drop is what the headline says, 2.5% Dow drop. One of the things was not to be watching a lot of news. And I've had people tell me this time and time again. I'm not watching the news, but they're worried. Well, all right. You may not be watching, and I'm doing my little quotations here. You may not be watching the news, but you're watching something.
Yep.
Yeah, and why? How do I know this? because they ask me questions that I see, the questions are related to information that I see on
That's out there.
X
Yes,
or Twitter.
yes,
So I'm like, okay, you're not watching
Oh,
like
no.
Fox or CNN, but you're watching something. You're watching some tinfoil hat person sitting in their garage, filming themselves, trying to get followers, and they're saying things to you that you believe in, and you're like, oh wow, I believe that, and next thing you know, you're following this person. And yeah, again, doing my quotations, you're not watching the news, but you're watching this. And the reason you're watching this is because that person believes like you believe.
Ah, true.
And do you know what that's called?
Oh, I do know what that's called. Isn't that like confirmation
Bingo.
bias?
You've been listening. You've been listening to on the show when we talk about it.
Yeah.
That is called confirmation bias.
Right.
So you're not watching the news. All of a sudden you find this person online. You follow them.
Oh, yeah.
They're posting content. And next thing you know, you're like, man, they believe the same thing that I believe. They're like, honey, look at this. Read this. This is exactly what I've been telling you. Bobby may say it to you. Hey, Luann, this is what I've been telling you. Listen to, I want you to listen to this because this is what I've been telling you. That is confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And that is a form of behavioral bias.
Sure.
So it feels good. So I'll give you an example. If I want to be coddled or I want confirmation bias, I guess is probably a better way to say it. If I want my mom to make me feel good because maybe I think I need some feel goods, from my mom, I'm going to call my mom because she's going to give me that confirmation bias. She's going to believe how I want her to believe because she's my mom.
She's your mama. Mm-hmm.
Now, if I want the truth, I probably don't want to go to Jen. I'm not. I kid you not. That is one of the beautiful things about my wife.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She's totally honest.
She's too honest at times, Luann. She's too honest with me. So honest that sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to ask her.
Thanks, I guess. Yeah.
So, the quick funny story. My grandparents, who I miss dearly, I think about them often. And I miss both sides of my grandparents, but I had my dad's grandparents a little bit longer. And I distinctly remember my grandmother always saying to my grandfather, now, Jimmy, he would say something and it wouldn't be nice because, I talked about getting old and crotchety, right, on a couple of shows ago. My grandfather could be old and crotchety and she would say, now, Jimmy. Well, guess what? Over the weekend, I said something and Jen looked at me and she said, Chris. And I said, that's your now Jimmy statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is. It totally is.
Now,
So,
Chris.
if I want the truth, then I have to go to my wife and she'll be,
brutally.
she'll be brutally honest with me. So, all right. So,
but that's true, and we
So
want,
true.
we want to be that way with our spouses. We really
So
do.
true.
Yeah.
100%. So here's one of the things. When I signed up to be a financial advisor years ago and went through CFP and CHFC and all the training and stuff that I've been through and designations and whatnot, one of the things that I don't think financial advisors and maybe even their clients realize is that financial advisor should have also realized that they signed up to be kind of like a financial counselor to some degree.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff we've been talking about today on the show has been related to counseling people. We had the nasty market drop, and I'm sending out emails and, just communication to say, hey, listen, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Here's why we have a plan. So what I want to do, we talked about confirmation bias. So that's a big one. We all do it. So, if you say, no, that's not me, I would beg to differ that you probably do have some confirmation bias, going on in your world. But let's go over some other forms of biases that we see. And, as you're listening to this, I would encourage you to say, that's actually me. I can see that.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you straight up, confirmation bias, I do it. We all do
think
it.
so. Yeah.
And I would say, I would debate you. I won't say I'm going to argue, but I would say if you say you don't do that, you don't look for that, you're not being truthful. Okay. So let's talk about experiential, or really, I know it more as recency bias.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the thing that happens to a lot of us today is we tend to remember and place a lot of emphasis on things that have happened in the recent history.
Recently. Okay.
So think about when we had the great financial crisis back in 2008.
Okay.
We call it the Great Recession,
Yep.
GFC. So the closer you were to around that time frame. So in 2008, let's say 2011, 2012, you're constantly, when that market wiggles, you're like, oh man, we're going GFC number 2.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, because it's recent.
Right.
It's also, I can make an analogy because I drive, a lot, and I enjoy it, and it gives me time to think, listen to, audiobooks and podcasts and do phone calls. But there have been times where I'm driving on one of the highways and I pass a state trooper. And I'm like, oh boy, check the speedometer. Oh, I'm not speeding because I use my cruise control all the time.
Good.
The further I get away from that state trooper, the less I think about him.
Right.
The first couple of miles, I'm like, what are you doing? And listen to the show. You check that rearview mirror like 26 times.
Double check.
26 times in 10 seconds. Your eyes are like flicking up.
Yeah.
Is he coming? Did he pull out of the median? Did he pull out of the median? And the further you get away, the less you worry about it. That's a recency bias. I'm worried about that state trooper. Same thing with market crashes. And right now, there's a lot of recency bias going on because of what happened in 2022. And part of what I'm hearing is I don't trust bonds because they betrayed us in 2022, if you think about it, because they betrayed us because interest rates went up. So as rates rise, bond values fall. And so people have that memory. Wow. And in 2024, and I'm sure moving into 2025 and 26, there's going to be a lack of trust for bonds. But the point is, this is a bias, and we tend to remember and place a lot of emphasis on things that happen in the more recent history.
Sure.
And that can impact your behavior. It can impact your decisions. It can impact the way you look at money, the way you're behaving with money, the way you're spending with money. So it's important that I think you're working with someone who is able to recognize those biases and be the Jennifer. Be the Jennifer and tell you, hey, listen, do you know you're doing this? Because I had a friend of mine over for dinner, and I don't manage like friends' money. He was over, and I told him, I said, this is what you're doing. And he said, really? And then he went home and started Googling it, the term, and he texted me, and I'm like, yep, that's you all day. All day. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's good to kind of call somebody out so they kind of see that. You want to do it in a tactful manner, of course.
Well, yeah.
Another one, this is a big one in our client base, is loss aversion.
Oh, yes.
Don't want to lose.
No.
Like you go into retirement, you turn off that faucet of income. I don't want to lose my money.
Dime. Yeah.
I don't want to lose a dime.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, if you're invested in the stock market, you're probably going to lose some money. You might lose it temporarily. If you sell while it's down, you pretty much sealed off the loss.
Yeah.
But loss aversion is where you're placing much greater emphasis on losing money or losing value to making money. And there is a balance, in my opinion, in retirement to being invested. Totally okay to have some of your money principal protected if that's what you want to do.
Right.
I have people that are on both sides of the spectrum. I got them that are very conservative. I got them that are more risky. The very conservative clients, they don't worry as much. Some of the money's in principal protection. They're more conservative. Portfolio barely wiggles, doesn't make a lot, supports their retirement. They're living their retirement dream, not having to worry. Then I've got the person on the risky side that says, I can take more risk and I'm okay with it. And then we have what happens in the last week, and they're like, "Hey, what do you think's going to happen the rest of the year?" And it's like, maybe you ought to back off some of that risk. That risk has got you a little squirrely, huh? Mm-hmm. So loss aversion, again, going back to that term, loss aversion is placing a lot more emphasis on losing money than making money. And again, I find that there's a balance. The last one that we'll talk about here is what we call familiarity bias. And this is, we tend to place a lot of emphasis, or maybe the way that we invest, on things that we are familiar with. Now, here's a really good example and where I see this. Real estate agents. If I ever talk with a real estate agent, there is a high likelihood that they are going to have lots of properties and more in assets like homes and rental properties and condos and things like that than they're going to have in liquid assets. The flip side of that would be my engineer that has worked here in Huntsville. Maybe they're a federal government employee. Maybe they work for one of the big defense contractors. Maybe they work for one of the big companies here in the area. They're likely to have much larger 401k balances because they work there. they had it deducted from the paychecks as going to their 401k. The real estate agent is familiar with real estate. It's their world. It's what they do. They sell real estate property and they see prices and they say, oh, that's a good deal. I'm going to buy this property. So what I tend to see with real estate individuals is they have much more familiarity with real estate and therefore they have a bias towards that. And that's where a lot of their money goes. So those are just some biases, Luann. I think this has kind of been a different show, more of a counseling type session, if you will, in some ways.
You know, I mean, that's what you do, right? You manage retirees and their money, but you also manage their emotions about their money, don't you? You help them.
We do. We try our best. Like I said, we feel like it's an experience to work with us. And I'm a real person. A lot of people are shocked, especially those that don't have history on me, to know that I worked in manufacturing for 18 years. So it wasn't like I was born out of a trust fund or I inherited a business. No, I got up every morning. I still get up early every morning, but I went into a job, into a plant, into a tech center where I was an engineering manager. And I worked and I, went from what you would, I guess, call blue collar to kind of white collar management positions. And then decided one day, hey, this is another avenue that I want to try, and kind of expanded in this business and grew our business. And now we have a nice little staff of people that work with us, and we have fun together and we have fun with our clients and our prospects. And really, we want, when people work with us, we want them to have a good experience. Obviously, when you're managing money, we all want to try to make money at the end of the day, but we also want to make sure that we're building plans that provide that confidence to individuals and families. We want to provide that clarity. We want to be that resource, and we want to have the place where if someone's feeling a little uneasy, we want to have a comfortable place that they can come to and sit down and have a conversation, get away from some of the noise. Because, Luann, if you think about the noise, I'm talking about the media,
right. Oh, yeah.
social media, which, can draw you in a heartbeat. And again, these people make these videos that are just so realistic. And they say it with such conviction that that's what they believe. And maybe they do believe that. But a lot of things I've seen on social media, they don't ever come true. Like, I'll give you a quick example and we'll hop off to the end of the show. But basically, it was one of the political candidates said that I think it was Iran was going to attack Israel last night. And didn't happen. But it was said with conviction, so you kind of believe it. So
no, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope this show's been good for the listener. It's been awesome to talk about behaviors and kind of the craziness that's going on in the market. But these are kind of conversations we have at the office. If you'd like to sit down and go over a discovery session where we can look at the data, build out your retirement plan, have a real conversation about you and your family and the longevity of your money and how it's inherited and the taxation and what we can do to better your tax situation as you move through retirement, give us a call, 256-937-2010. We can help you with all of that. 256-937-2010. I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. Remember where to put your faith, not in man, and remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
AE Wealth Management, LLC provides services without regard to religious affiliation, and the views of individual advisors are not necessarily the views of AE Wealth Management.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. Insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisor requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.